Hi, this is Dylan Code with the California Superbike School. We see all sorts of strange writing on the side of our tires, but never really pay attention to it. Have you ever wondered what each of these things actually mean? Let's get into it. Starting here, we see 2011 DOT 1DAEY 9AYM. 2011 does not refer to a year, but rather Dunlop's internal factory code for this specific make, size, model of tire. Over here, we have the DOT code for this tire. The DOT has its own way of referring to this specific tire. So 1DA indicates where it was made, in this case, Buffalo, New York. The EY specifically refers to the dimensions of this tire. In this case, it's a 260. The 9AYM is how the DOT refers to this general line of tire. In this case, it's the Q5 tire. 3023 indicates exactly when the tire was made, in this case the 30th week of 2023. This shows, of course, that it was made in USA, and it says Sumitomo Rubber USA LLC. Sumitomo owns Dunlop, so that is the parent company. Next we have the size, so it's a 260 ZR17. 200 indicates it's 200 millimeters wide. 60 means that it is 60% of that tall, meaning 120 millimeters from here to the top of the tire. Z is the speed rating. Z indicates that this can withstand or is capable of speeds over 149 miles an hour. R refers to radial, it's radial construction. 17 is the size of the rim it's used for, in this case 17 inches. It's important to note that these dimensions are not exact. There are variations in measurements allowed within the range of the stated dimensions. Here it says MC80W in parentheses. MC, of course, stands for motorcycle. 80 is the load range, and that refers to the maximum amount of load that that tire is approved for, in this case 992 pounds. W is the speed rating for this tire, so this is another more specific speed rating, which refers to 168 miles an hour. However, if it's in parentheses, it is rated to exceed 168 miles an hour. Of course, here it says Sport Max and Q5. Sport Max is the general line of tires, and Q5 is the more specific type of tire within the line of Sport Max tires. This logo stands for jointless tread. Now the tread is the part of the tire that actually touches the ground. And when they construct the tire, they spool rubber all the way around the tire continuously, so there are no joints. Next is JLB, which stands for jointless breaker. The breaker is the next layer up from the base of the tire, and you might even call it the belting. The jointless breaker is also spooled on the tire continuously. This, of course, is the direction of rotation intended. The reason this is important is the tread pattern of the tire is designed to go parallel to the normal forces that it would encounter rather than perpendicular. When mounting a tire, you want to make sure that the arrow is pointing in the proper direction. This part pretty much speaks for itself. DunlopTires.com, and then at Ride Dunlop for social media. This right here is an interesting code. This is the specific mold used for this tire. Now they're in two parts. There's a bottom and a top, and because that's the B, that's the bottom. This would also help them trace back any issues with regard to quality control, so they know exactly which mold was used to make this exact tire. This yellow dot denotes where on the tire it is slightly lighter than the rest of the tire, so that when you mount this tire, you put this part next to where the valve stem is, and that helps with balancing the tire. This tiny little arrowhead indicates where you will find the wear bar on the tire. So up here in this void, which you can't quite see, but that's where you're going to find the wear bar. So it corresponds with these around the tire. Here's the wear bar. So once your tread wears down to being even with that, replace the tire. This shows the max load that this tire is rated for, so it's 450 kilograms or 992 pounds. At 290 kPa, that is kilopascals. A pascal is a unit of pressure, roughly equal to the amount of pressure a dollar bill would exert resting on a table. So 290,000 of those, which is equal to 42 psi. That's a little easier. And of course that measurement needs to be taken when the tire is cold. Load range B indicates that it is suitable for motorcycles. Now, if you have load range A, that's going to be for like lawnmowers or much smaller equipment. And of course, cars, trucks will have a later letter designation in the alphabet. Now, it's important to note that this 42 psi is if you are going to load this thing to the maximum amount, in this case 992, just on the rear tire. So that's maybe 2 sumo wrestlers, 2 up on a motorcycle. This is not the ideal PSI to run when you're riding. It's just the maximum load PSI that needs to be there if you are going to be loading that tire to that amazing amount of weight, which is highly unlikely. But the thing is, it will not tell you the ideal PSI for when you're riding in the canyons, et cetera, et cetera. They don't know all the parameters. So that's all you get as far as that's concerned. This shows what the base of the tire is constructed of. So on the sidewall, we just have nylon, and because it's radial, it's going to be in this orientation. And then on the tread part over here, it's a combination of nylon and aramid. So an aramid fiber is a synthetic fiber that's quite strong and resistant to heat. This number along here is printed on the bead. The bead is a part of the tire that contacts your rim and forms an airtight seal. And this specifically refers to the exact size, shape of that bead for manufacturing purposes. E11 means that it passed the Economic Commission for Europe's certification. 11 refers to specifically what country did the certifying, and in this case it happens to be the United Kingdom. This next number right here is the ECE's unique identifier for this specific tire. So they're not going to necessarily refer to it as a Dunlop Q5 260, but this actually means that exact same thing in their books. Okay, so now let's talk about the markings on both sides of a slick race tire. Moving on with the slick, this indicates, of course, that it's tubeless. This indicates the width of rim that this tire is suitable for, anywhere between 5.5 and 6.25. These are the general dimensions: 260, R17, R means radial, 17, that's the inches of the rim that it can be mounted on. This is the specific designation of the shape of the bead, which is of course the part of the tire that touches the rim. KR451 is the general line designation, which actually is a holdover from when Goodyear used to own Dunlop. Now it's owned by Sumitomo, but they kept this designation, which was given to the slick tires. Multi-tread, MT, means that this tire is capable of, or some of the models are made so that they have different tread compounds on them. So there might be a softer tread on one side and a harder on the other. But that just indicates that this technology exists. And for that reason, you want to make sure that you know what compound you have on one side versus the other. This is a warning for responsible use with regard to modifying it or grooving it, checking inflation, pressure, and inspecting the tires. This shows that it is not approved for on-road use. This is the code for the mold that was made. This tire was made with, and this happened to be the top side of the mold because it's got a T on it. NTEC refers to the specific technology of a hybrid belting that they use on these tires, where it is spooled around this way but also diagonally. This indicates that the tire can be mounted either direction, so you don't have an arrow pointing only one direction, it can be either. And of course it says rear wheel use only. That kind of speaks for itself, but sometimes people get strange ideas. JLT, jointless tread, again that refers to when they put the rubber, the tread on the outside, it's spooled on a continuous strip around and around and around until it's entirely covered with rubber. This barcode here is used by Moto America to keep track of tire allocations over a race weekend. The FC 1023, that's the factory code for this specific model tire. So Dunlop internally would refer to this tire as a 1023. This number right here is the quality control inspector's mark. Behind that we can see DA, that shows the factory they were made at. In this case, it's going to be Buffalo. Again, this is when it was made, the 23rd week of 2022. And then we have the compound code. Now it says this side and opposite side. Now, this is a multi-tread tire, so these sides could be different from each other. In this case, they're the same. But this is important to note, especially if you are dealing with one side that's harder than the other. For example, a track that's mostly rights or mostly lefts, you can use that tire to even out your wear. And finally, some slick race tires will have this on the side of them, MJ44, and what that is a tribute to a longtime engineer at Dunlop. His name was Michael Jackson. He was there for 44 years and retired, and this was the last project he worked on, so it's a really nice tribute to him.